foremost, thank all of you for taking time out of your busy schedules to join us this evening. Over and over again, we hear back from parents across Harford County Public School District that our fourth, fifth, and sixth grade parents need more information about what's coming. What's going to be happening in the next few years? What can they plan for? How can they support their children to progress to the next stage and the next phase? We all know how much we enjoy our elementary schools. They're so comfortable as parents. We know where to go, we know what to do. But as we move towards that middle school, we're really just not sure what's coming. And so what we want to do is support you in that this evening and give you the tools you need in your toolbox to help make sure your child transitions in the best possible way. Sometimes when we hear about middle school as parents, we may groan a bit because perhaps we struggled with some of our children in the past in middle school, or maybe we had some negative experiences in the past ourselves. But we're going to put all of that aside tonight because we've got 3 leaders in our district who are going to convince us otherwise that middle school matters. It's a wonderful opportunity for growth, for transition, for success, and they're going to help us understand how to make that happen. So I am going to basically get started by turning it over to our experts. And what I want to do first and foremost is introduce them to you. So making the middle matter, we have Miss Laurie Namey, principal of Magnolia Middle School. Hi, Miss Namey. And
I'm already muted. Thank you so much, Mary Beth. I'm happy to be here. And I'm thrilled that so many of our families has chosen to join us this evening and spend some time with us. So thank you and welcome.
Be fun. Thank you so much. Joanne McCord, Supervisor of Mathematics. Hi, Joanne.
Hi, Mary Beth. I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
Thanks for joining. And Miss Katie Campbell, a Curriculum Specialist in the Career Technology and Education Office. Is that the way I say it, Miss Campbell?
You got it. So thank you for having me tonight. I'm very excited for the opportunity to share some information with our families.
Thank you. Thank you so much to all 3 of you. So I'm going to turn it over now to Miss Namey, who's going to get us started. Miss Namey.
Thanks, Mary Beth. Hi, everyone. I'm so glad we get to talk tonight about something that's close and dear to my heart. And I am one of those crazy people, as they like to say, that truly enjoys working with middle school children. As you know, for most of you, you've experienced the middle school experience, I'm thinking, either by yourself as a student, or you might have already had children in the middle school. And you know, I always joke that middle school is the shortest of the 3 programmatic sessions of K through 12 because it's the most tumultuous. I like to say it's the most fun, but it's most exciting and probably one of the fastest paced developmental stages of our students. I'm proud to share that all 22 years of my career here in Harford County Public Schools has been spent in one way or another working with middle school students and staff. And I can't tell you how exciting it is to talk about it and to really put a name and a face and a thought to the students that we serve during our middle school time.
Thank you, Ms. Namey. I'm going to interrupt for just a moment. Could we make sure all of our parents mute their mics and turn off their cameras? Those that have joined us, thank you so much for coming this evening, and make sure that we're muted so we can hear our presentation. Thank you so much. All right, Ms. Namey, your turn.
No problem. So like I said, middle school could be a rocky ride, but hopefully some of the information we'll share with you tonight will help you just put a little bit of rest and understanding to what we know and love about our middle school child. So I'd like to think there's 6 things that I think are really critical for families to know and understand developmentally where students are. And the first thing, and I like to say that students in middle school, if you've had a middle school child, you know that sometimes they can't think past their nose. Emotions are very high at this point in time. And so sometimes emotion trumps thinking. So you'll see your child do something, say something, and our question as parents or as teachers or administrators is, what were you thinking? And often they're not really sure. And so helping them understand what to do with their emotion, their emotional changes, is going to be a really important part of supporting our middle school child. The other thing about middle school is that this is where they begin to explore their purpose, who they are, and what impact can I make as a human being. I often think that the important skill sets for us as educators and parents here during this time of development is to making sure students have choices. They begin to be able to weigh pros and cons of some of the choices that they're presented with. And then also, this is the time that confidence and building their confidence is really important. I tell my staff all the time, please find spaces where we could celebrate the success of our students. It might be little things, but we want to reinforce the good so that that is the behavior that is continually built upon. One of the third pieces of important information for families to know is that as students develop who they are and figure that out, they often seek their approval and that list of things that they should be from their peers. And we could say that could be good, that could be bad, but I think it's important that we just know. Knowledge is power. Students are going to look for their approval, maybe not as much that they used to from their parents and their guardians, or maybe from their teachers or administrators. They often will look to their other friends and peers. So the important thing here is for families to make sure that you get to know their peer group. You ask them a lot of questions. You even get to know the parents of some of their peers and friends, and just make sure that as much as you can, your values and thinking are aligned so that all of your students are together making those good decisions. The other thing is actually an official label of the developmental stage that our students are going through. Erik Erikson, very, very early in time, developed the stages of development. And middle school lands in a very appropriate developmental stage, identity versus role confusion. Who am I? Who do I aspire to be? And what can I do about it? So making sure we're positively affirming our students, especially those behaviors that we want them to display, those habits, healthy habits, those positive academic habits, whatever they are, we want to continue to incentivize those, encourage them, and make them feel that that is the most important identity they should strive for, to be scholars, to be wonderful humans, and to be good providers of service and friendship and caring and generosity as they move through their life. Two more things that I believe are really important for families to know about middle schoolers is that they really need to see what's next for them. Like I said at the beginning, sometimes middle schoolers can't see past their nose. So they often don't think about the consequences for their actions, or, sometimes I get this every time towards the end of a quarter. I'll have students come to me and say, Ms. Namey, I can't believe that I got an E. My teacher gave me an E. I said, well, let's open up the grade book. Let's talk a little bit about this assignment. And then we'll go through some assignments maybe that they missed. And they'll say, well, I didn't know it was going to matter that much, or I didn't know that was going to affect my grade, or I forgot. And so they don't necessarily see that what's next and that their actions actually lead to whether it's a positive or a not so positive consequence. So helping students understand the very clear connection between what they do and what road that will take them on, and then making sure that they know what's out there for them. Trying to give them as much exposure to things as possible. It's one of the things I love about our curriculum in Harford County Public Schools in middle school is that they have a lot of exploratory courses. They get a little taste of a lot of different things. So their classes like unified arts classes, even their math and science and social studies classes, the content is very vast so that we kind of get to measure some of the things that they're interested in. But providing that sense of hope might be one of the biggest gifts you could give to your child. Letting them know there's always something better coming. There's always a bright future. There's always things to aspire to. Last but not least, this is the one that I say, sometimes your child, this is when you'll get your heart broken first by your child, because they might make some mistakes. They might scream out, I hate you, or I don't care what you say. I want you to know, parents, that is not true. They need your attention and your affection more than they might need anything else. But this is when they're going to fight against it. But I want to tell you as parents, please make sure you keep pushing, keep loving on our students, even when sometimes they display some unlovable things or make some unlovable mistakes. Your love, your support, your attention, your affirmations, all of that truly, truly matters. So parents ask me often, my teachers ask me often, so what can we do about it, Miss Namey? What can we do to make sure, knowing what we know about the middle school child, how will we know that they're successful? Well, I call these the Great 8. And there's a cute little video clip that floats around on the internet, and I could even send to the participants. It's a little cute TED Talk, but it talks about Ned, the adolescent brain. And Ned, the adolescent brain, takes us through what we call the Great 8. How do we know students will do well? What do students need for them to do well? And here they are. The first thing is that students need to feel good. They need to feel okay. So mentally and socially, they need to have a stable situation as much as possible. And we know one thing that the pandemic has taught us is that life is turbulent and life could be stressful and life could be anxiety driven at times. And helping them to feel the safety of our circle, feel the safety of family, feel the safety of school and connection helps students feel okay. And it's also important here to make sure our students know that it's okay to not feel okay too, and to ask questions and to ask for help. Students do well when they know what they're doing matters. So this is when that why comes in. It's not enough to say, you need to do the dishes because I said so. Or for me as a principal, you need to walk in the hallways because I said so. They need to know why. They need to be able to make those deliberate connections to what's important and what actions they should display. So making sure that students know why they're learning things, why they're doing things, and why it matters. Students, especially in middle school developmentally, are naturally kinesthetic learners. They move a lot. I say often it looks like a baby giraffe when they move because their bodies are growing a little bit faster sometimes than the rest of their coordination. But they do like to move. So as much as you can transition them, they might not want to sit with a book for 2 hours, but say, hey, why don't we read together silently in the house for 15 minutes and then let's take a quick walk around, or let's have a little dance party break. Whatever it is, kids do well in this time when they're active. This is when, and I know that Joanne and Katie are going to talk about engaging our students in challenging situations, because when students are stretched, whether it's their brain, whether it's their soul, whether it's their mind, when they're stretched, when we raise the level of expectation, they actually will rise to it. Students meet our expectations. We just have to be clear about what they are. Students do well when they have a coach, when they have a cheerleader, when they have someone that's there to support them. Students do well when they know they have to use it. So it's not enough to explain a concept to students, and math teachers or people who teach math or are exposed to math, they'll tell you practicing mathematics, using authentic and building authentic tasks using mathematics is really, really important, because kids need, again, to see that connection between what they're learning and how they're going to use it. And it even helps embed it in their brain when they're able to use it over and over again. And that's how healthy habits are built. 2 more, when students are able to be coached to think back on something. So you probably have heard a lot of teachers will often ask students at the beginning of class, let's go back to what we talked about yesterday. That's very deliberate. Because when we're forcing ourselves to recall something and to bring it to the forward part of our brain, it helps it make and maintain its place in our memory. So having students asking them, hey, remember what we talked about? Why don't we recall those three most important things that you remembered about our conversation? And having them having to reflect is actually helping them instill it in their brain and in their short-term and long-term memory. Just a little note on that. one of the things that we've learned about educating post-pandemic, or even during the pandemic, whatever way you want to look at it, is that students who have never experienced trauma or stress before have been really impacted by the pandemic. And when students are exposed to stress, especially when their brains are smaller, they're not fully developed like they are when they're in the ages of 11 through 13, the stress hormone cortisol floods and impacts the brain. The part of the brain that's impacted the most is short-term memory. And coincidentally, short-term memory is really advanced and developing at a faster pace in middle school during this age bracket. So a lot of times the short-term memory is not really as functioning as we have. And I know maybe that I would say young adult, because I know that now I'm in my 40s, my short-term memory has gone backwards a little bit. But when we're exposed to stress, the cortisol floods the frontal part of the brain, which impacts short-term memory. That's why routines and procedures are so important for our middle school children. Because if they're really stressed out, or if they're coming post a pandemic and they're really have been impacted by that for whatever reason, then often our students will have a difficult time remembering some things. So one of the practices that we do here at Magnolia Middle School on Monday mornings, I tell my staff, please, let's reinforce. I'm on the overhead announcements. Reminder what we stand for here at Magnolia. What are our valor expectations? Because sometimes it's very natural if students are stressed or worried about something, they'll forget. They'll forget the simple procedures, and it's our job as the adults to serve as a reminder for them. Last but not least, planning, and again, going back to that provision of hope, is really important. Students need to plan, think about their future, and then plan for it. And that is what Joanne is going to talk about next, how we plan for our future, how we plan based on the courses that students will begin to take. So their future that we think might be far away, but that's really around the corner, can really be actualized. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Namey. In Harford County Public Schools, all of our teachers of mathematics are committed to providing a challenging mathematics program that well prepares all of our students for the rigors of lifelong learning. And the goals of our mathematics program is to present our instruction that is aligned to our Maryland College and Career Ready standards, to provide opportunities for enrichment and intervention to support students, and really to implement classroom practices every day in every classroom for every student that consistently challenge students to compute fluently, to reason logically, and to communicate their thinking succinctly. And when we think about our elementary mathematics program, as our students are in our elementary school, they are taught the standards that are aligned to their grade level. And so while students have opportunities for enrichment and intervention in our elementary schools, they are all learning the same grade level content. And like what Ms. Namey talked about, that it's important that we offer our students choices and that we build their confidence. As they enter middle school, our mathematics program can look differently for different students. And our content maps for our middle school provide different courses for different students each of the years in middle school. And so if we look at this progression, when our students leave grade 5, they've all received instruction that is aligned to our grade 5 standards. And each family in the spring, towards the end of the school year, will receive a letter from their grade 5 school, the teacher and principal, and really mapping out what the grade 6 math content is for that next school year, with a recommendation of whether the students would be in Math 6 in grade 6, which is aligned to grade 6 standards, and it's a 1 grade level math course, or if they're recommended for what's called our pre-algebra course. And if you look at the flow chart, you can see that our pre-algebra course is an accelerated course. It provides, it is a challenging course because it actually combines our content standards for both grade 6 and grade 7. So all of that content is taught within that one course. And then from the flow chart, you can see that when students then move into 7th grade, we actually offer 3 different math courses. Our Math 7, which is our on grade level content course and is aligned to grade 7 standards. We have an accelerated course that's called Integrated Math 7, and that course is accelerated, more challenging because it is aligned to standards in our grade 7 and grade 8 standards. So it's going to move at a much faster pace. And then the 3rd course that is offered in grade 7 is Algebra 1. And in that course, again, that is accelerated because we need to include grade 8 content along with all of the standards that are aligned for our Algebra 1. And Algebra 1 is a graduation requirement, and it's also an assessed area as a graduation requirement. Then as students move into grade 8, again, we offer 3 different courses. Math 8 is our grade level course that's aligned to grade 8 content. We have Algebra 1 in grade 8, and so that is combining some grade 8 standards that support the learning of the Algebra 1 standards. And then for students who completed algebra in 7th grade, we offer geometry. In middle school, the Algebra 1 courses and the geometry course, they both earn actually high school math credit. So then as students move into our high school, and I know this is a rather complicated flow chart for high school, but in our high schools, we offer a wealth of options and different pathways as they are working towards what their life will look like after high school. So in high school, part of the graduation requirements in Maryland is that a student must graduate high school with 4 math credits. Now, students can earn some credits in middle school if they took algebra or geometry, and then they would need at least 2 more credits in high school. That's earning a total of 4 math credits. But the other part in Maryland is that students in high school must be enrolled in a mathematics course in all 4 years of their high school experience. So even if a student earns a credit in middle school, they still would have to take a course in each year of their high school career. So if we take a look at this flow chart, and I know it is a little on the small side, but we offer a lot of courses in mathematics in high school to offer students a lot of choices. And just so that you also know, if you want more information and really want to dive into the flow charts, they are all available on our HCPS website. If you go in and search for mathematics, you can find the flow charts. But if a student enters high school, if they took algebra and geometry in middle school, they've earned 2 math credits, then they would take the next subsequent math course. And that's another part of the law in Maryland, is when a student is in high school and they're in their mathematics course sequence, they could take the next subsequent course. So for a student that completed algebra and geometry in middle school, when they enter high school, their first course as a freshman would be Algebra 2. And so if you look on the flow chart at the Algebra 2, after Algebra 2, the next course would be Trig, then Pre-Calc, and then beyond the Pre-Calc, they could take either Stat, AP Calculus, or AP Statistics. So when we are thinking about our students entering middle school, we want to make sure that they are in a challenging math course, but we need to make sure they're in the appropriate math course for them so that they are challenged, but not too challenged. I like to use the phrase, and Ms. Namey talked about, stretching. I like to use the phrase stretch, not strain. We want our students to be challenged in mathematics, but we also want them to be confident, and we want them to be on a trajectory of mathematics that will provide them with opportunities to be challenged, but also to be confident and to see mathematics as relevant to their world and their career path as they enter high school and through graduation of high school. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Katie.
Well, thank you to my colleagues. You probably saw me taking notes on both of your presentations, so I learned some new things myself tonight and would like to reference those. So yes, I am the Curriculum Specialist for Career and Technology Education, as well as the Magnet and Signature programs for Harford County Public Schools. And you may be asking yourselves why I'm here. I asked myself the same thing when Mary Beth invited me, but why think about high school now when my student may not even be in middle school quite yet? And it goes along with the math piece that Joanne just spoke to. That trajectory is really important when you talk to your students, your children at home, about what they might like to do in high school and beyond. And so if we look at what's offered in our comprehensive high schools, you'll see that all of our high schools across the county all offer programs in business, family and consumer sciences, and technology education. So what this means is when your student enters high school, they will have the opportunity to select or declare a program pathway, and those program pathways are required by MSDE for graduation. So we call it in their junior year, they complete a completer course that fulfills their graduation requirements for the University Systems of Maryland. And so if your child chooses to stay at their designated high school based on where you live, your boundaries, they have these opportunities. So within the business area, there are opportunities in business management and entrepreneurship, accounting and finance, and some schools are able to offer marketing as well. In family consumer sciences, there are 2 areas of study. If you have students in the county who are in high school now, you probably hear them refer to it as foods, which is our hospitality management program, and the other is early childhood education. So you may also be familiar with the preschools that are available in most of our high schools, where the high school students actually become the teachers for those pre-K students. And so what this means is in a comprehensive school, any of these programs, if that is what your child is interested in pursuing, they need to do nothing more than talk to their school counselor. And when they fill out their scheduling form, just select those courses. There are no prerequisites for entering. Of course, it always helps if they have a genuine interest in those areas and aptitudes for those things, but there are no other requirements other than they complete the form, and then it is all just based on enrollment and staffing in their school if there's a seat available. So signature programs are specialty programs that are offered in various high schools. Most high schools have them, and you can see the list of them there on your screen. So we have the Academy of Finance at Edgewood High School, our Agriculture and Horticulture program at North Hartford, Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness. Interactive media production is offered currently at 3 sites. Project Lead the Way Biomedical Sciences is offered in 2 sites, and Project Lead the Way Pre-Engineering is offered in 3 sites. So the reason for explaining all of this to you and going through each one of those is not to overwhelm you with information about what is where, but many times parents and students think that they have to apply to a magnet program and leave their home school within their districted area to pursue areas related to these things. So they might say, well, I need to go to Science and Math Academy because I want to be an engineer. And if you live in the C. Milton district or Aberdeen High School area, you have opportunities to participate in the pre-engineering program through Project Lead the Way. So what makes these programs unique from the comprehensive high school programs and different from magnet programs is that these programs are only open to students residing in that school's zone. So there is no application. If I'm at Beller High School, I can't apply to the Academy of Finance at Edgewood High School. Now, if I'm already attending Edgewood High School as my home school and I enroll in business, rather than being in the comprehensive business ed program, I would automatically be enrolled in the Academy of Finance. Other things to note is that because these are signature programs, they often come with some type of national accreditation. Project Lead the Way is nationally accredited. So again, if you have the opportunity to participate in one of those types of programs in your home school, it does set you apart and differentiate you later down the road for either college applications or job applications or scholarship opportunities. And that leaves us with magnet programs. So our magnet offerings, as you see there, We have 7 programs. I'm sorry, I'll have to enlarge my screen over here to get all of them. So Global Studies International Baccalaureate is offered at Edgewood High School, and this program is nationally accredited, and so it does hold some requirements as far as math. So again, going back to Mrs. McCord's piece, there is something in place there where if your student might be interested in pursuing global studies, they would need to think about this in advance to be prepared for the math that's required. So upon entering the program, and correct me if I'm wrong in how I'm saying this, Joanne, but before entering the program, your student, your child, would need to have completed Algebra 1 and geometry. That said, go ahead, Joanne.
Yes, so students entering those 2 programs would need to complete Algebra 1 in middle school. Sorry, need to complete Algebra 1 in middle school for, and we do offer a summer geometry for those students who complete the Algebra 1, but would like to take the geometry during the summer.
Thank you. Yes, so those are some of the requirements there for global studies, and like Joanne said, we are offering courses over the summer. Information Technology Oracle Academy is a newer program at Havre de Grace High School, and so that's more of the programming side of computer science. The Natural Resources and Agricultural Sciences program over at North Hartford. Pathways in Early College High School. The name is long and yet still somewhat vague. So that is a newer program at Joppatown High School. And this program is has a focus in cybersecurity and information systems. So they have partners with APG and CCOM who help prepare the students for internships. Each student will have a paid internship during their high school years that could potentially lead to job offers for post high school opportunities as well. So it's a really neat opportunity. It's a little different than the Oracle Academy, which is more programming side. Like I said, P-Tech is looking more at cybersecurity and information management systems. The Science and Math Academy at Aberdeen High School is another one that has, you might have guessed it, a math requirement. So you will need to have, or your student will need to have completed Algebra 1 and geometry as well before entering 9th grade there. The Teacher Academy in Maryland is at 2 sites, at Edgewood High School and Hartford Tech High School. One of the common questions we get is when we apply, can we choose a school? And that answer, unfortunately, I'm the bearer of the bad news, is no. So it's based on seat availability, and those seats just fill based on the program coordinator's blind selection process. So no, you cannot select your program there. And then we have all of our trades and industries programs at Hartford Technical High School. There are 17 of them. I will spare you and not name them all, but you can visit their website or even the HCPS website if you're interested in learning more about what those are. And some of them do have some suggested or recommended math courses to have completed just to increase the likelihood of success in those programs. Again, that is so much information. We have in CTE over 37 career programs, and it's growing. And all this information is based upon workforce data analysis for our area, and we're looking at what career paths will be high wage, high skill, and high demand in the future. So if you're wondering how we come up with these programs and what's offered, it's based on those 3 things, as well as student interest and our staffing, of course. And so when you think about what is required, I tried to simplify everything I just said in those last few slides into one. So again, at your comprehensive school, all it takes is a conversation with your school counselor and completing the registration coursework. Signature programs are the same thing. There are no application requirements. It's just a matter of what is available or offered at your school. So it's the same thing when your student comes home or accesses their registration form online. All they have to do is check the box that says, I would like to begin the biomedical sciences program or the pre-engineering program or whatever it might be. Those magnet programs, they do have an application process. So my recommendation is to attend a magnet informational night. We do those typically every fall, beginning in September and October. And what we'll do is go around to each high school and meet with parents in the auditorium in the evening and students and explain what the application process is. And you'll get a glimpse into what a day in the life of a student is like. And from there, the applications will open on in October and close on December 1st. And in the meantime, each program will host its own open house where you can go tour the school, meet the instructors, meet some students, see the facility, and decide if it's the right fit for you. And so that is an application process. There is a timeline. And again, there's more information on the HCPS website about all of those things. And you might be saying, that's too much for right now. Let's get through middle school. And that's totally fine. But I do encourage you to come and visit our schools. It's really great. I'll go back to what Ms. Namey said, her point number 5, see a future to believe in a future. And so a lot of times when I ask middle schoolers what they're interested in doing, we still have a lot of professional athletes. We do. And that's awesome. I hope it works out for everybody as well as it can. But, you know, those are opportunities to talk about what other career fields are available or of interest to them. It's even a great time to tie in mathematics and let's talk strategy. Let's talk about stats then in that sport of choice or whatever it might be. But also a great opportunity to see other career fields in action is to get those students to the high school, to meet the current students, to talk about their plans beyond high school, to let students know. A lot of times they're just young and in their own little middle school world, and they're just not sure of what job opportunities or career opportunities exist for them. So, and there will be a whole slew of new opportunities awaiting by the time they're ready. So those are awesome conversations to start having to find out what your children are interested in, what their plans are, and then you can help guide and massage those conversations to make sure that they are setting themselves up for the best opportunities and success in the future.
Thank you all so much for this information. I know that it's a little bit overwhelming when you have 10, 11, 12, 13-year-old to start thinking about this. But that said, it's so important because, as all of you have shared, that you start to have these conversations with your child around interest, looking at that future, holding that hope of what's coming next. It makes it very exciting. As a parent of 4, I've been through this 4 times, and every single time it's different. They have different interests, different strengths, you know, that they want to explore. So it's just such a great conversation to have. So we are at a point in the presentation where we're actually ready for questions. So if you have a question, feel free to put it in the chat. And while we're waiting for those to come in, I think I'll start with you, Ms. Campbell. You mentioned the conversation around, you know, we might be a little bit early to think about some of this, but I think you really did highlight something that parents might not realize, that, you know, if their child has a passion, they could probably maybe even find some learning for that or some academic curriculum for that in their home school, correct? I mean, you did share many different offerings.
Absolutely. So again, working with your school counselor to determine if there are programs, those signature programs within your own school would really help. So I can go back to some, again, if they have an interest in business, every high school offers a business program. Now the difference there with Edgewood is that it's the National Academy Foundation's Academy of Finance. So it is a little slightly different program than the general business ed, but each school has its own program offering. So again, they are Academy of Finance, Agriculture and Horticulture, Homeland Security and Emergency Preparedness, Interactive Media Production, Project Lead the Way Biomedical Sciences, and Project Lead the Way's Pre-Engineering.
Wow, that's great. Thank you for that. And then Ms. McCord, just thinking about the math piece of this, and just to reiterate that, when you're talking about math, and Ms. Namey could probably answer this too, as you're talking about math in middle school. So if you are, if your child is in Math 7 or Math 8, what's the possibility of them getting into a signature or a magnet program? Is it still feasible?
Absolutely. And like I had said before, we want all students to be challenged in mathematics, but we also want them to be confident in their mathematics. And we don't want to set them on a trajectory where they are going to be required to take a level of mathematics that they are not prepared for. So in the middle school years, regardless of the math course that they're in, we want to make sure that they are putting their best foot forward, doing their best work, asking questions, so that when they do go to high school and they are meeting with their counselor and interested in maybe a signature program or talking about their different pathways, they can show their performance in their math regardless of what course it was in middle school, because to take a course that maybe they're not ready for or they're not prepared for and not do well certainly is not going to help them when they are then looking for those choices. We want them to be in the course that matches where they are in their learning of mathematics so that they continue in their high school on those subsequent courses and are successful.
Thank you for that. And there's another question in the chat from Liz. If my child's already in middle school, 6th grade, and elected to take Math 6, is it feasible for them to move to a different path in grade 7?
It is. So our students who are in Math 6, so in grade 6, we have Math 6, which is grade level content. We don't offer any math course in our in our middle schools that are below grade level courses. They are all on grade level or beyond. So if they are in Math 6, doing really well, working to their potential and making sure they're completing all those assignments and not having those consequences because they've missed something, working hard, asking questions, reaching out if they need assistance, because then at the end of Math 6 in grade 7, they could go into integrated Math 7, which is an accelerated course, and that course is aligned to grade 7 standards and grade 8 standards, which prepares the student to then take Algebra 1 in grade 8.
So to that point, just to add to that, Ms. Namey, as you see students in your school who may be in Math 6 and they might need a little bit of help, are there supports available for students that need that extra help and just to help them through maybe to get a handle on those assignments and supports?
Oh my gosh, definitely, definitely. And what we do as middle school principals is we articulate well, and I'll speak on what I do at Magnolia because I think it's important for families to know what to advocate for and how deep the process is for us to kind of match the student's displayed ability, but also potential as we think about what's next for them. So I meet with all of my incoming fifth grade teachers about every single one of my incoming 6th grade students. And we talk not only about who they are as learners or what the teachers recommend, but we also say, do they have potential to access higher level math? And then we do what we like to say is like bump them up and just see how they do, and then monitor that group of students that we might have took a risk on, a calculated risk, but to see if they're able. We'll do the same thing internally as kids move from 6th grade to 7th grade to 8th grade. And so for an example, like you mentioned, Mary Beth, if there's a student that did fairly well in math, struggled a little bit in Math 6, but we know that they have aspirations to go to a signature program, to go to a magnet program. Right. We want to make sure everything's accessible for our kids who want it and have the potential to do well. So we might schedule as a principal a math class in grade 7, integrated math, but with supports of maybe a special educator, an additional adult, a smaller class size where we're able, so that they'll get that intentional support during the school day. And then of course, I could pretty confidently say that the majority of the middle schools have opportunities for kids to get extra help, teachers willing to stay and support students who are struggling. But really, it's about us making sure we're matching the potential with the opportunity for all of our kids. And then when the opportunity is there, that means access has to be as well, making sure that everything is accessible to our kids.
Well, and I love that word you use, Ms. Namey, advocacy. So as parents, sometimes we may hesitate to reach out, don't want to be a problem, but quietly we're wishing that there could be a different situation for our child.
Oh gosh, yeah.
And I realized just in my own personal experience with my one child, I really did have to advocate. And it worked out, right? The school listened, the school counselor talked to me. So I think that as parents, we need to step up and gently, kindly, professionally say, hi, I need help here.
Yeah, and
like you're responsive to that, right?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. And we love it. The greatest gift you could give to your child is be their advocate. And that means, advocating, understanding what it is that's best for them, and then asking those questions to make sure we're doing the right thing for kids. And having the conversation. This is a partnership together, principals, teachers, families, to do what's right on behalf of our children. So making sure that they're in the right spot, asking those kind of questions, maybe even asking for the data that was utilized so you could get a good picture on who your child is as a mathematician or as an English scholar, whatever it is, so that you and the teachers and the principals could make a sound decision.
Well, and I'm glad you mentioned that word data, because I think as parents, sometimes we think that the only decision piece of the pie are grades. And there are other factors that both the counseling office, the administrators, that teachers look at. And so I think equipping parents with that understanding to be able to understand the whole picture that you're looking at, that they're looking at that same picture, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And then there was a question in the chat box from Ben. Assuming a student wanted to attend a magnet school, at what time would they be applying? So just remembering that timeline is so important. And I think I heard you say, Katie, that they would be applying by December of their 8th grade year. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yes.
Okay. And so when would families hear decisions about the next step?
So the application window closes on December 1st each year, and the rest of the month of December and early January, the program coordinators are reviewing those applications, reading the essays, and ranking the students and who they would like to offer a seat to potentially. And so I'm glad that question came up, and I'm glad that we just heard from Ms. Namey again, because it did remind me of some other pieces too. It is so critical that you work with your student, your child at home, and have these conversations, because when they apply to a magnet program, they are in that program for 4 years.
That's a long time.
All of the, especially when you're in middle school making this decision, that seems like forever. And so we really want to get it right for your student and for those who were not afforded the same opportunity simply because we don't have enough seats in all of the programs for the demand that's there. So each program will review those applications, offer up their seats, but it's a 4-year commitment. And so it's not as easy to say, oh, you know what, I tried it, it's not really for me, I think I'll go back to my home school, as it is to do when you're at your home school in business ed and you say, this isn't for me, I'd like to try foods. That's a little bit easier to do. Or if you're I attend C. Milton Wright, I'm in pre-engineering, and I decide that's not for me, and I just, go back and fulfill my graduation requirements through another programmatic pathway already offered at C. Milton. So again, please, I'm urging you that it's so critical that you start the conversations early, come to the open house event, see the school, meet the students, find out what people are saying, what they love about the program. Those magnet programs, they do lead to some type of credential. So I'll just give the examples of cosmetology. when students graduate from that program, they actually have the opportunity to sit for the licensure exam. And so there are a required number of seat hours to even qualify for that exam. And so that's why it's so important that when you come in as a 9th grader, you're fully committed to that 4 years. People often ask, if I don't get into 9th grade, can I apply as a 10th grader? And for that same reason, with the hours, the clock time, the answer is no, usually not. There are some extenuating circumstances. Obviously, if a member of the program, their family moves and leaves the state, then of course there's a seat. But typically, no, those situations don't arise.
Okay, well, thank you for that. There's a question in the chat box, Ms. Namey, for you, I would think. For a student moving from elementary to middle school, can you advise the parent on the process on how the student parent can work with the middle school to make sure that that student is starting with the best possible package to optimize their middle school years? So I think it's a great point. Sometimes as parents, we just, oh, okay, here's the paper that says this is where my child's going to be. Okay. And then you move on. But it sounds like this parent's like, oh, wait, I can ask. How do I advocate? What do I do? Who do I talk to?
Yes. So I want everyone to know that the process for the early identification, the identification for families to be able to, for the teachers and administrators to make the recommendations and those decisions, they are there through a process using data, using grades, using set criteria that is provided to the teachers and administrators to make those initial recommendations. Teachers also have the option at that point in time to recommend something different than the data is pointing. And teachers will make that decision looking at a lot of different pieces about the incoming their 5th grade student and as they transition to 6th grade. At that point in time, towards the end of the year, the principal will send out a letter of what that decision was, that they're going to be placed in pre-algebra or Math 6 for the 6th grade based on the data that students presented with academically, and then also the teacher recommendation. At that point in time, I would recommend you as families, if you agree with that decision, you don't have to do anything. If you would like your student to be pushed a little bit further and you think that they would handle pre-algebra, or if you think the opposite, if they're identified as a pre-algebra student and you're a little worried that the student wouldn't be able to handle that, maybe they have some other life things going on and you would feel more comfortable them staying in Math 6, then that would be something that you would call your principal, your assistant principal at the elementary school to talk about how that decision was made. Now, if you get the student to middle school, I want you to know as a middle school principal, I hear every family who gives us a call and has questions about it, and we could talk through it, and we can make a joint decision about what's going to be best as they move forward into middle school. But like I said, there is a streamlined process across all of Harford County Public Schools elementary schools of the data package that they look at, and then the teacher recommended process that they go through. And then there's room for some discussion. Like I said, with me at Magnolia Middle School, I have some further discussions on your behalf, on families' behalf, to discuss the opportunities and potential students have. And then we kind of make those decisions together as well. But you could always ask questions of your elementary school principal. And then, of course, if they get to the middle school, asking questions, or even if when they get here and they're in Math 6 and you say, you know what, they could be challenged a little bit, or it could be October and they're in pre-algebra and you're saying, you know what, I think Math 6 might have been a better fit. I could tell you that all of the middle school principals will be willing to work with families to be able to figure out what's best for their child.
And I think that's a great point. You just you need to use that voice as a parent to make sure you advocate, and you can, and that's encouraged for sure. Well, thank you all so much for your time, for your expertise, for your guidance. We know, parents, that this is a very exciting time for you as your children transition. Before we close, Ms. Namey, I want to give the last word to you. Just in a very short summary, what is the difference of the day from elementary to middle for these children? So I remember in elementary school, you know, it's a very organized, you know, walking in the hallway is very much directed by teachers and such. But just for parents on the call to know, what's the change as far as independence? What happens?
So I believe that probably the biggest change would be the number of classes and the amount of transitions that students have during the period of a day. They will have anywhere from 6 to 7 classes each day, and often that includes 6 to 7 different teachers. So helping them organize their transitions and that movement is something that we take seriously with our teachers. So our teachers help students with that, but definitely something for families to think about. How am I going to help my kid be organized to handle the different demands, if you will, or expectations of teachers, and then what's next with them for their day? I'd probably say that's the biggest change that families talk about. Now, I could tell you at Magnolia, we still walk our students to and from lunch, so that's always happening. But during the course of the day, when we have transitions moving to class period, our teachers are out there also to help them out if they need it.
And I do want to let you parents know of 4th and 5th graders, the biggest challenge for kids and the biggest stressor is going to be that locker.
Yes, that too.
Please reassure your child they will be given time and grace and patience to get it down. But that is the stressor the night before school. So just remember that you'll have that support, and please reassure your child they'll be fine. So, well, on that note, thank you all so much. It was a recorded Parent Academy, so we'll be sharing this out in the community. So please share with your friends and neighbors this information. If you're on the soccer field, or I think it'll be basketball court now, or inside sports, but please share the information about Parent Academy. We are a resource for you, and we know that Harford County public school parents are our children's first and best teachers. So as Ms. Namey said, we are in this together, and we need to have our parents come alongside and know what they need to know to help their children grow and really just succeed. So thank you all so much for joining us this evening, and I hope we see you next time. Stay well.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.